The Big East looks like a three-bid league. And I've spent, obviously, time on this, throughout the offseason, and you can break it down a number of ways. But here's the way things are going. The Big East, for years, got great mileage out of Villanova under Jay Wright as its flagship program. The Big East then also got great mileage out of Marquette under Shaka Smart, who went to the NCAA tournament for his first 4 years in Milwaukee. He's obviously having a tougher season this year, and also Creighton. Marquette and Creighton are not near the NCAA tournament picture this year. 2 years ago, the Big East had 3 teams in the NCAA tournament: UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. All 3 made the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. UConn won a national championship. Creighton and Marquette lost tough games in the Sweet 16. Last year, Big East had 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. But with that said, one of those teams, Xavier, who was coached by Sean Miller at the time, made the first 4 and lost in Dayton. This year, and again, it's January 29th when I'm doing that show, we are starting to get in a tricky spot for the Big East. You're not getting the mileage out of Marquette and Creighton that you have the past couple of seasons. I thought Georgetown would take a step under Ed Cooley. It is not. Providence as well, a program that Ed Cooley always had in the NCAA tournament picture, has not obviously been an NCAA tournament caliber team. Those 4 teams are at the bottom of the conference now. So you look at the top. UConn, again, is clearly a national title contender under Dan Hurley. St. John's under Rick Pitino has won 7 games in a row and is figuring it out. Looks right now in that 4 or 5 seed range for the NCAA tournament, potentially, maybe a 6. Then Villanova, under Kevin Willard in its first season, has done a massive job returning to relevancy by doing a great job of not taking too many tough losses. But now we're getting to bubble territory. Now we're getting to really dissecting these NCAA tournament brackets. Now we are starting to look at bracketology on a daily basis. 2 wins for Villanova that stand out. One was at Seton Hall right before Christmas, and that win, based on what's happened to Seton Hall right now, is starting to lose a little bit of teeth. Now, Seton Hall has had a great season and an overachieving season under Shaheen Holloway, but the Pirates, even though they beat Xavier recently this week, do not necessarily look like a team, in my opinion, that is going to be able to rally and withstand the test of time and what it's going to take to be an at-large team to the NCAA tournament. So you're left now with 3 teams: UConn, St. John's, and Villanova. And UConn and St. John's will play February 6th at MSG in the first installment of 2 regular season games this season. To me, it's one of the most anticipated games we've been waiting for this year. Villanova played its tail off on Saturday against UConn, and it came up just short in overtime. That was a devastating loss for the Wildcats because now Kevin Willard and company really have 2 games in the regular season to move the needle: the home game against UConn and the road game against St. John's. Those are the types of regular season wins, that and obviously doing work in the Big East tournament that could follow that could help amplify Villanova's resume. Because the bottom line is this: when you look at the Big East now, the Big East has 2 teams, and it has a team in Villanova that has done a great job winning the majority of the games that it should win. But there is not a lot of teeth on that resume right now, aside from the Wisconsin win in Milwaukee, which is a very, very good win. And when you start comparing this now with other teams that are on the cut line, Villanova cannot afford any bad losses coming up over the next 5 or 6 weeks, because it would drastically expose right now the fact that the Wildcats do not have that many great wins. And I will say this: credit to Kevin Willard for being such a terrific steward of this program. It was a very difficult spot for anybody, especially Kyle Neptune, who worked under Jay Wright at Villanova, to follow somebody who made Villanova a blue blood program. Villanova is a really, really good team. It needs to, over the next 5 or 6 weeks, add a win against St. John's at in New York or a win against UConn at home, in my opinion, to really beef up its resume for the NCAA tournament. The Big East right now, barring something unforeseen, is only going to have 3 teams in March Madness. And we're seeing more and more and more, and I'm doing it every single week when I break down my bracket and look at the bid representation. We're going more and more towards a Power 4 system in terms of the most representation in the NCAA tournament. Big Ten and SEC got a chance, in my opinion, to get double-digit seed representation in the NCAA tournament. Big 12, I think, will get 7 or 8. The ACC, I think, will get 7 or 8. But the Big East right now, I think the ceiling is at 3. And for me, this rendition of the conference is in an interesting spot because you look at the 2 teams at the top of the league, UConn and St. John's, coached by Dan Hurley and Rick Pitino. It's 2 coaches that have both won multiple national titles in their careers, and they're 2 teams, obviously, that could go really, really far in the NCAA tournament with the right draw. If you're St. John's, UConn's obviously going to be a trendy pick to go to the Final Four and win a national title. But with that said, the worst thing in life than being proactive is being reactive. It's much better to be proactive than reactive. So with that said, what is the Big East going to do to counter this? Because Rick Pitino's 73 years old. He might be able to coach till he's 83 or 93. It's amazing what has happened. But if you really think about things, for how this all unfolded for St. John's, let me take you behind the curtain. Rick Pitino was unexpectedly removed as Louisville's head coach in 2017. It was shocking. He went to Greece to coach professionally. He obviously did a great job in Greece in the Euro League and then wanted to come back to the States. And Iona gave him a path back to his native New York to coach at a really good mid-major basketball program. During that time, rules changed in the NCAA where name, image, and likeness was allowed, and so was the transfer portal with immediate eligibility. That coincided with the president of St. John's, Father Shanley, wanting to make a major hire to resurrect his university and his basketball program. Rick Pitino was already in town and didn't have to move. He also knew that Mike Rapoli, a billionaire booster, was going to fund everything he needed from an NIL perspective. All of this aligned for St. John's to get Rick Pitino. And if it didn't align, where 5, 6, 7 things all came together, St. John's would not have a coach of Rick Pitino's ilk right now coaching in Madison Square Garden, being in a situation where St. John's could be a top 16 protected seed for the second time in as many years. And then you look at UConn. UConn has been tossed around in realignment as much as any team in college basketball over the last 10 years. UConn has been linked to the Big 12. UConn, I'm sure, would welcome any exit to a tangible football conference. And those conferences, I'm sure, would potentially love a marriage with UConn. The football issue is what's held the Huskies back. But if you take those programs away from the Big East, what is the Big East right now? Big East is at a big-time crossroads. And I've said it, and I'm not somebody, again, who lives in the college football world like many other people do. Again, the last game I've watched from start to finish was the Fiesta Bowl with Miami and Ohio State with Ken Dorsey and Maurice Clarett over 20 years ago. I get that. But you look at what's happening right now with these other leagues, they're all evolving. The Big 12 is innovative with Brett Yormark. The Big 10 added UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington. The SEC added Texas and Oklahoma. The ACC did a great thing by going from 20 to 18 league games. And now, because of a little bit better scheduling, some new coaching hires, the ACC could potentially double its volume in the NCAA tournament, going from 4 bids to 8 bids this year. What is the Big East doing? Now, some people might say they are who they are. They don't want to mess with, obviously, a double round robin format. And look, when you have Jay Wright at Villanova, when you have Ed Cooley rolling at Providence, when you have Shaka Smart at Marquette with a perennial NCAA tournament team, those things are fine. Same thing when you have a great program at Xavier. Chris Mack, for years at Xavier, had a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. He had a 1 seed in 2018. He had a 2 seed in 2016. And in 2017, took Xavier to the Elite Eight. Sean Miller took Xavier to the Sweet 16 in 2023. That is not the current state of affairs in the Big East. Not at all. I have said repeatedly, because I'm not somebody who follows college football that closely, all I know is this: Notre Dame is not connected to a conference in college football. So if Notre Dame is not connected to a conference in college football and college football has no bearing on this, why wouldn't the Big East be going on Airbnb and getting its best possible conditions to stake out in South Bend and try and get Notre Dame to the Big East? A brand like that, a program like that has common rivalries. Because the way this is going right now, I'm seeing down the road, and I'm seeing 6 weeks from Sunday, on Selection Sunday, I'm seeing 3 teams in the NCAA tournament for the second time in 3 years for the Big East. And that is not an ideal situation.